Good morning. Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. Day after Super Bowl. I am tired. I stayed up late. I am Manila Chan. That, of course, there is not Ted Rall.
Not Ted Rall. He's
Not
much
Ted
better
Rall.
looking than I am.
This is producer Robby, who goes by just producer Robby. Filling in for Ted. He is not feeling well. We're wishing him a speedy recovery. You are still tuned in, though, to the Ted Manila Information Show, the TMI show for short, where we bring you way too much information. Of course, we talk about politics and lifestyle, all that stuff. And we say some bad words. So if you're not into that, not feeling it, I'll warn you now so you can go ahead and click to another program. We would rather you stay, but at the same time, I'm warning you. So if you're going to complain, just you've been warned. We are live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. So please be sure to like and follow this show, whatever platform you're on. If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble and you have yet to become a subscriber or follower, doesn't cost you anything. Just hit that button so you can help us grow the channel that way simply by following the program. And of course, if you can help us grow it by sharing the content, we would greatly appreciate that. We are on show number 75, so we're just over 90 days old at this point, Robby. So we're still a baby show.
Yeah, we are. But the numbers are going right. The trends are going right. For those of you who don't know, I play a lot on the back end, like I do the audio and all the video uploads and stuff. So I get to see all that stuff. I also replied most of the comments. And no, the momentum's there. We are growing. So if y'all just keep on sharing, and especially if you're on YouTube, click that like button. If clicking that like button once is the equivalent of getting about 15 to 20 more views. And it costs you nothing except for maybe a fraction of a second of your time. So if you can do that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. I see. I don't know how those metrics work, but that's why we have you to fill in and let us know how the details work on the back end. Today, we're going to talk about DOGE taking a buzzsaw to USAID. Everything from the humanitarian aid and the soft power politics of this to my personal axe to grind, Robby. And I think you know about America funding independent media all around the world, and then now people they're screaming and yelling about, oh, what's this going to do to democracy? And we'll get into that later, obviously, because twice now I have been laid off under the Biden administration because of their worries about democracy and foreign media, foreign meddling. I have a huge axe to grind. And yeah, I'm so glad for all the faults that Elon has, for all the faults of DOGE, and we can. I mean, that's a different conversation about all these kids, and I say kids because they're like between 19 and 25 years old on his DOGE team that are just hacking away at U.S. government employees. That's a different conversation to say, should these kids have access to this or that or the other thing? But one thing I am grateful for, and this is coming from the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, that she is showing dollar for dollar where that USAID money, where a big chunk of it has gone, and a lot of it has gone to foreign media. And the U.S. is now screaming, but, how are we going to save democracy?
I mean, why don't we just use the Zelensky model? It'd be cheaper. I mean, just install a president and then just suspend the elections. I mean,
just cancel everybody.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen. If
have
all
only state-funded media.
Hey, listen. If all it takes is to be elected once,
that's right.
And then you get the president because hey, you got elected. I mean,
we could say martial law.
Well, I mean, we could call it the. I kind of got into a pissing match with the Zionists the other day. He was talking about,
oh no,
Hamas. They had an election. I said, yeah, and I'm looking at your bio, and I see a Israeli and Ukrainian flag. Your hero, the janitor, had an election too. So explain to me what the difference is, because they're really under the exact same freaking model.
Yeah, that's
wild.
all nuts. So we're going to talk about that on the back end of the show. I'm going to try to play double duty here and read the headlines and roll the video. And I'm sure, Robby, you're going to have a lot to say, comments that are different than what Ted would ordinarily say. So I'm curious to see what you're going to say about the headlines. So let's
Well,
get.
if you want, I can do the headlines.
Oh, you can read a couple if you want to. You got them pulled up in front of you. I'm going to try to juggle some.
Okay, well, I just want to point out, being a son of the South, reading is difficult for me, especially without pictures. So take it for what you will, but I bet you I can do this. I bet you I can do it.
Robby's going to read without pictures.
Yeah. All right, so let's do this. So you want to jaws it first, or
let's jaws it? Let's jaws it. Okay.
Kosovo.
What? Oh, these are hard names. I'm just gonna say. I'm gonna be honest. These are hard names, Robby.
That's all right. I can handle it. Hey, listen. I read the King James Bible. I can handle hard names.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
All right. The Republic of Kosovo held preliminary elections on Sunday with 88% of the votes counted.
Wait a minute. That's the wrong story. Story number 1. Let me start this.
Hold on. You're right. See, there's no pictures.
Let me get to number. You gonna do this? We're starting with the Kremlin.
Yeah, I got this. I see what I'm doing now. The Kremlin said contacts between the U.S. and Russia had taken place recently, intensified. But first, Moscow indicated the two countries are discussing a potential plan to end the fighting in Ukraine. There is indeed contact between certain government agencies, and they have intensified recently. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told journalists in response to a question about Ukraine negotiations. See, I can read if I'm reading the right story. President Trump has repeatedly promised to clinch a deal between Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, at the negotiating table. Trump said last week his administration has already had serious discussions with Russia about the conflict, thus provided little detail. Peskov has previously shrugged off questions about the U.S. initiative, but his comments Wednesday represented the first time he acknowledged that contacts at some level were occurring. Peskov's remarks come as both countries signal an increased willingness to talk about the halt of the conflict. The Kremlin has repeatedly called Zelensky illegitimate, because he is, as president, but Peskov and Moscow was ready to talk to him for the sake of negotiations. Zelensky likewise said in an interview Tuesday he is ready to sit down for direct talks with Putin. The Kremlin confirmation of contact is the first concrete signal of progress over negotiations after months of uncertainty over Trump's ability to make good on his promises. The lack of any
confirmed... It's been over 24 hours. Let me just say, he said he was going to end the war in 24 hours. We're in week 3, I think.
Hey, I mean, no time. If gender is relative, why ain't time? The lack of any confirmed communication between the two leaders or plans for a meeting for which Trump has publicly called have kept observers guessing about how quickly any potential negotiations get off the ground. Trump has also appeared increasingly impatient with Putin. Oh dear. And he and his advisors have been floating plans to force Russia to concessions with highlighted sanctions or undermining the price of Russia's main export oil. So, Manila, I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. How in the hell can the United States force Russia to do anything? The United States is lost. I mean, I
don't know.
I mean, isn't it typically the victor that dictates the terms? I mean, explain this to me. Walk me through it like I'm dumb.
Well, there's only a few more sentences. Let's finish that, and then we'll dig into that.
All right, we can do that. Putin, on the other hand, has complimented Trump in public, even saying last month he agreed with Trump's false allegations that the U.S. presidential election in 2020 was stolen from him, and if Trump had been in office, perhaps the Ukraine conflict wouldn't have started. I cannot but agree with him that if he had been president, quote, I cannot but agree with him that if he had been president, if his victory had not been stolen from him in 2020, then maybe there would not have been the Ukraine crisis that broke out, he said, speaking to a Russian reporter. Hey, how did I do for my first time?
That's not bad. That's not bad. Lots to say about this crazy story because, first of all, let me work backwards, like on this, on Putin using the tact of complimenting Trump
Yeah.
publicly. That's, I mean, clever Vladimir Putin, right? He knows, everybody knows, that all you have to do to get Trump to work in your favor is slather him up with some praise and compliments, and he will be eaten out of your hand, right? So
Yeah.
Putin's no dummy. He knows that this tactic works. So that's, of course, what he's doing publicly, even to float the idea that the election was stolen. And to some degree, I actually agree with that. There are some inconsistencies in how, things are done especially in the way of the media, which ties into USAID and stuff that we're going to talk about later. But, the whole Hunter Biden laptop story, I mean, we all know that if that bogus story in the US weren't presented the way it was as Russian disinformation, I think we could have had a different election in 2020. So Putin playing into that, I think, is very clever. But the main takeaway, the most important part of this is that there is now dialogue between the White House and the Kremlin, which there hasn't been for over 2 years, which is knucking futz, if you ask me, that President Blinken, yes, that was on purpose, not Biden, because we know Biden was not president. So I'm going to say President Blinken shut off all it was radio silence for over 2 years. And then you're arming Ukraine in a manner in which they can attack inside Russian borders, and they have. They're now in Kursk, and they're killing Russians within their border. The U.S. President Blinken arming them and not talking to the Russians, that is batshit crazy. That is the best way to walk us into World War III. And that guy, that war hawk, was explicitly doing so by way of turning off all communication with the Kremlin, turning off all even back channels. Like even during the Cold War, right, with the Soviet Union, there were back channel communications, many lines of communication, maybe not directly between the Soviet leaders and the US, but there were back channels. There was something going on. There was nothing happening for 2 years except funneling $1 billion to Ukraine to allow them to save democracy by canceling elections, by making an incursion into Russia proper, and by doing everything, that a spoiled little brat kid would do, and coming back to their rich daddy, and daddy being like, "Now, Volodymyr, I told you not to do that." And he's like, "Oh, but dad, shucks, I won't do it again." And then he does it again, and we keep buying him a Ferrari to crash. And that's basically the way I see what's been happening the last 2 years. So to me, I think even though Trump's bluster of being like, "Oh, I'm going to give more sanctions to the Kremlin," I don't know how much else you can sanction at this point. There's no isolation. That shit didn't work, right? Like, you've only grown the Russian economy accidentally. Nothing has worked. So, let Trump be a blowhard and try to act macho. And I think at the end of the day, the Russians are winning. Putin knows full well how to get Trump on his side, and we're seeing that happen in real time. That's my analysis of it.
Yeah, no, I know about to keep on going because of the headlines, but I just got to say that
No, you can chime in.
the entire thing has backfired. Not only is Russia winning, but Russia has become a hero of the global South because these countries are just constantly just being bullied by the United States, being picked on, being coerced, being threatened. They see Russia standing up, not only standing up to the United States and its proxies, but defeating them. That is huge because it shows that while, yes, we ourselves individually, we cannot fight the United States, we can support the nation economically that is. And I think that just goes to show that the sanctions do not work. I think that the dollar's days of being the world reserve currency are numbered. And woe unto all of us, because when that thing goes down,
Oof.
it's gonna suck.
Well, it's going to hurt for us in stateside,
Yeah.
and obviously it's going to hurt for the world too when that day comes. And I think personally, Robbie, I think we'll see. I mean, we're in our mid-40s. I think we will see that in
Oh, yeah.
our lifetimes, where the the status of the U.S. dollar is going to tumble so much and no longer be the world's reserve currency as Saudi Arabia joins BRICS, and this a new petrol cartel
Yeah.
comes to power, and the US, it's just a new millennium,
Yeah.
and you can't operate on 20th century ideas when the rest of the world has now matured, and they've caught up and they understand the game. And I think we're just still operating, the US foreign policy is still operating on old Cold War era philosophy that does not work and only leads to war. The new war is economic.
Yep.
Bloodshed is passe, and we're trying to keep our defense contractors fed. That's all it is. And that doesn't make America great again.
No, I completely agree. And on that note, let's go head on over here to up to the headline two to keep on moving. So European officials need to manage their expectations in diplomatic negotiations against a more volatile geopolitical environment. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, great lady, by the way, I love the hairdo, she could bounce a basketball off of it, said in a reference to a possible trade war between the
A
bloc
helmet.
and the United States. Yeah, I mean, look at it. I don't know what the hell she puts on her head, but
She can do crash testing for cars with that hair.
well, God knows her skull's thick enough. There is a world where we can no
Quote,
longer take much for granted, including the rules and norms that were built over the last 70 years, she said at a press conference Tuesday, adding that, quote, in this hot-headed world, Europe's best approach is to remain level-headed, unquote, says the
says the
lady
lady.
supporting a Nazi.
Thank you. I was just going to say, says the lady that wanted to insist on the Ukraine war continuing. And now she's in her new job and she's like, we got to be cool, guys. We got to be cool.
Yeah, no, she's completely insane. Von der Leyen, one of the European Union's most powerful officials, talk about failing upward, says
Mhm.
negotiators need a clear and reasonable idea of the world as it really is. Quote, don't think in terms of pessimism or even optimism. Think about it in terms of what is possible, end quote. It's kind of like
Inspirational.
she's been unburdened by what has been.
That's
The
true.
the commission president said no other economies in the world are integrated in the same way as the EU and Canada, or I'm sorry, EU and the United States. I'm gonna just to say no. Canada kind of has a beat there. We want to make it quote. We want to make it work, and not only because of our historic ties, but because it's simply smart business. Sorry. So our first priority is now to work on the many areas where the interests converge, end quote. Her comments came after US President Trump signed an executive order on February 1st, placing an extra 10% tariffs on all Chinese imports, as well as threatening measures against Canada and Mexico before postponing them. When both countries agreed to boost border security. Trump blasted the U.S. trade relationship with the EU over the weekend, calling it a quote atrocity, and complaining that the U.S. exports are more. They complained that the U.S. the
EU.
EU exports more than the U.S. than it imports. He said fresh tariffs of the bloc will definitely happen. Quote. We know that there will be an increased use of threats and economic coercion tools such as sanctions, export controls, and tariffs. End quote. Commission Chief von der Leyen said, Europe will safeguard its economic and national security, but it is important that we strike the right balance. Yeah.
So that, I don't know. That to me just sounds like if Trump, I mean, he's going on a tariff tear all around everywhere in every direction, just shooting arrows everywhere. With the EU, we obviously import, I think, way more than we export to them,
Yeah.
but it's mostly in the way of automobiles, right? It's always like German exports like BMW or, BMW, Mercedes, um, whoever owns Land Rover these days. It used to be Ford at one point, but I think it's gone back to the UK. But it was a UK product. I think we import a lot of high-end luxury goods, Hermes, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and cheeses, things like that. I mean, gotta admit, the Europeans do know how to do fine goods and luxury items. So ultimately, if that stuff comes in under heavy tariffs and the cost gets passed down to the consumer who's going to feel that are the one percenters of the
Here's
United States.
I'm going to look at this a little bit different because Trump wants to end the war in Ukraine. The Western Europeans are the ones that want to see it drag on, even at the detriment of their economies. And so I think that these tariffs are a way for Trump to potentially force them into accepting a peace deal.
That's, you know what? That is pretty damn good analysis. I hadn't thought about it in terms of this war that obviously which was headline one, but I think you could be right. But at the same time, the cost doesn't. It's not it's not Louis Vuitton that's going to pay the tariff on it. The tariff charge gets passed down to the well-to-do buyer, the well-heeled buyer who's buying a Louis Vuitton bag.
Sure.
It's not you, it's not me. We're not going to that whatever. That's most of Americans' day-to-day usage stuff isn't stuff that's brought in from Europe. The stuff that's brought in from Europe are usually high-end goods, which I'm not a consumer of. You're not a consumer of. So it's really going to hit the top.
Hey, listen, I'm wearing very high-end flannel right now. That's why I'm putting that out there. I mean, look at this. Look at this shirt. This is some high-end stuff. All right. But no, I don't think that this has to do with purses, though, Manila. I think it has to do with the auto industry because hear me out. I've been thinking about this. The European Union wants this war to keep going for whatever reason.
Yes.
Personally, I think they want dead Slavs. Can I prove it? No, but I think that's what it is. Well,
there's a deep down hatred for them.
Oh, historically, oh yeah.
Yes.
And so the German automobile industry has imploded because they can no longer get cheap oil from Russia. Their prices are going up because it costs them so much more to make steel and other metals now and other alloys. And now with Trump pushing, if these tariffs do go through, that's going to push those prices up even more. That's going to incentivize the American consumer to buy American-made vehicles because they're going to be cheaper. I think that this is where this is going because Trump understands that the European economy is very fragile right now, and if he can get them by if he can get them by the grapes and squeeze really hard on cars, then why wouldn't he do that? He is a businessman. This is a negotiation tactic, just like with the tariffs with Canada and Mexico. It was never about the trade imbalance. It was all about controlling the border. And so he got them both to get on their knees. And I think this is the exact same thing that's going on here in terms of economics.
I think that's a really good point. And I think more to your point earlier about bringing the war to a close, I think, making them think that there's some pain, our allies, quote unquote, think that there's some pain coming their way unless they start making concessions about not funding the Ukraine war. I think that you've got a good point there. And a lot of it's one of our headlines that we're going to talk about shortly. How a lot of the European Parliament, they are not happy with Ursula von der Leyen being the Commission president because we all know her position on the Ukraine war. Sure. She was hawking it the whole time. I mean, she was thumping on that thing hard. She wanted that to continue because of arms productions. I mean, for the same reason that U.S. war hawks wanted it, right? So, but now there's new parliament members in the EU, younger people like this pretty lady from Poland. They are not happy with her. They are not happy with this globalist, war expansion ideology, and they're pushing back against her. I'm happy to see that. But of course, we'll talk about it more because there's another headline that's going to cover that as well.
Okay, I will keep right on going then. So this is the one I started off with at the first time by accident because again, your intrepid producer, he does some crazy things sometimes. So we'll just keep on going. Like Manila had to teach me earlier what a hyphen was. It's like, what the hell
I
is a
didn't.
hyphen?
Ted
No, it
did.
was Ted. Well, whoever. Same thing, same difference. It's fun having friends who are editors. The Republic of Kosovo had held preliminary elections on Sunday with 88% of the votes counted. Prime Minister Albin Kurti's party, I'm going to try to pronounce this, the self-determination movement, let's go to the translation, is ahead with 41% of the vote, a drop from the 50% Kurti got in 2021. This means he'll likely need to form a coalition to stay in party. The Democratic
In
Party of
power.
Kosovo, what?
Stay in power.
Is that what I said?
Now you said stay in party. He's going to stay in the party.
Whatever. Okay, we'll stay in power. The Democratic Party of Kosovo, or PDK, and the Democratic League of Kosovo, LDK, are projected to receive 22% and 18% respectively, while the Alliance for the Future of Kosovo, the AAK, got 8%. It's possible that the opposition parties could form a government of their own. Former Prime Minister and AKK leader Ramush Haranjig,
AAK.
AAK leader Ramush, let me see, I am butchering this. Ramush Hanjarjig said,
Haradinaj.
whatever. Y'all know what I'm saying. No, you don't. Looking forward to cooperating on the creation of an opposition government to keep Kurti out of power. And Kurti himself has said that he would not engage with the opposition parties. But Kurti seems to have changed his tune late Sunday, declaring victory and vowing to govern. Quote, "We are the first party, the winning party that will create the next government. We will continue to finish the work we have started." End quote. Under Kurti's leadership, tensions escalated with both neighboring Serbia and Kosovo's Serb minority. His left-leaning government banned the use of the Serbian dinar and shut post offices used by Serbs, drawing criticism from Western governments and leading to the EU to suspend aid and funding. In contrast, both the LDK and PDK, except slowing down, so it really is a little bit better, are center-right and pro-Western, with the PDK campaigning on rejoining NATO and restoring relations with the U.S. Should Kurti form the next government and continue with his anti-Serb stance, Kosovo risks becoming even more isolated. But should the opposition take power, it could redefine Kosovo's relations with the EU and the U.S., which it wants to join, and potentially relaunch peace talks with Serbia.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea, to be friends with your neighbor. Hello, Ukraine. Take a hint.
Well, I thought that you couldn't change the borders in Europe. I thought that they were like sacrosanct, that you couldn't change them. Well, the borders were changed when the United States and the European Union through NATO destroyed Yugoslavia, and Kosovo became this artificial construct. So if the Donbass is an artificial construct, then by that same logic, isn't Kosovo? It's the same exact thing.
It of course absolutely is. And with Albin Kurti basically belittling the small Serb minority within his borders, I mean, what are you doing? You're just opening up the doors to being racist against people that live within your own borders. Like this lady, she's a Kosovo Serb. She's Serbian, right? This is exactly what happened in eastern Ukraine in the Donbass. They started little by little laying the groundwork by basically making the people in the Donbass the other, right? Saying that they're not really Ukrainian, they're Russian blood. They're otherizing those people. And then before long, after the Maidan Revolution and the US-backed coup, the Putsch government comes in and starts bombing the people in the Donbass into submission. You're You start saying that the Serbian language is illegal. Their Orthodox church is now illegal. That's how it happens, little by little.
Sure.
And then you start ethnic cleansing the Serbs, the minority Serbs in Kosovo. We've watched this same playbook happen. So I can't believe Albin Kurti is that far. I mean, it's not a huge lead, but it's enough to show that, sadly, I think a lot of the voters back his philosophy of calling, Serbian people in Kosovo the other. And I think that's just a bad look for any government.
Well, I mean, the Balkans has been a troubled area for hundreds of years. There's a lot of historical animosity. There's a lot of ethnic animosity. There's a lot of religious animosity.
Yeah.
And I mean, you probably should not go around trying to pick a fight in that area because it could very easily explode. Now, I mean, maybe this dude's just looking at Trump's proposed ethnic cleansing of Gaza. I mean, if Trump can do that, then why can't he? I mean, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. But I think it's just a bad look for any government. I wish we were past that era, but we're not.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm gonna chime in, and I want to read number 4 and 5.
Okie dokie.
Headline
Knock
4.
yourself out.
I'm
Do it.
gonna read headline 4 and 5 because I found
Good.
video that's long enough that I don't have to toggle back and forth. All right. So this happened this weekend over in Madrid, beautiful city. So you guys know about MAGA here in the U.S. I think people have begun to hear about MEGA, right? Have you heard about that, Robby? MEGA?
Oh yeah.
Make Europe great again? Yeah.
I've been in touch with quite a few European nationalists and been like, we're tired of being a vassal of the United States. We want to become independent sovereign states, which I'm, as a son of the South, like, God,
You
go
get
with
it.
God. 100%. Yes. It's always the same thing for Montana.
MEGA. And you know what? Come on. MEGA, as far as branding goes, that's great. MEGA. That's, I mean, you don't have to like it, what it stands for, but the branding is pretty good. And that was like what Elon Musk came up with, which is pretty hilarious. Okay, leaders of the hard right Patriots for Europe bloc addressed 2,000 supporters in Madrid on Saturday under the slogan, "Make Europe Great Again." Hungary's Viktor Orban, France's Marine Le Pen, the Netherlands' Geert Wilders, Italy's Matteo Salvini, and Czech Republic's Andrej Babis, and Austria's Herbert Kickl hailed Donald Trump's return to the White House and vowed to, quote, reconquer Europe. Yeah. Orban claimed that, quote, the Trump tornado has changed the world in just a few weeks. Yesterday, we were heretics. Today, we're mainstream. So who are the Patriots and what do they want? Formed in May of 2024 in the European elections there. The bloc includes 86 members from 14 countries, representing 19 million voters. It is the third largest group in the 720-seat European Parliament, and it opposes green policies, opposes migration, opposes gender and family diversity, and what they call population replacement, which here in the U.S. we would call that the Great Replacement Theory. It wants to change the EU's governance structure to one that's based on national sovereignty. Imagine that, having your own country say for your own people. Other right-wing parties, including Italy's Fratelli d'Italia, or FI for short, Poland's Law and Justice, and the German AfD, who's getting a lot of media these days, have so far refused to join, which is, I find that kind of surprising and odd that AfD didn't go to this thing. But I think also kind of speaks volumes that AfD isn't what especially American mainstream media has tried to malign them as like this racist thing. I think there's even more racist tropes coming out of like Matteo Salvini than any of the AfD people, but that's, neither here nor there, I guess. This event, showcasing the people that were there. You see countries like Greece, you see flags there. However, in a letter sent in late January, the European Conservatives and Reformist Group, home to Italian Prime Minister and FI leader Giorgia Meloni, urged the center-right European People's Party to ally with the Patriots. And as tariffs loom, Le Pen claims that the group is the only one that can, quote, talk with the new Trump administration.
Well,
What
I'll
do you
tell you
think
right now.
about that?
Well, these are my kind of people because what
Wait, these people?
no, like those right wingers that they're talking about in Europe, those are my kind of people. There is nothing wrong with wanting to put your own people first. No nation on this earth is obligated to open up its borders and bring in tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of other people when your own people are already suffering. There is zero obligation in that. If you are Greek, you're allowed to be Greek. It's okay. If
I
you're
agree.
German, you're allowed to be German. Your history spans more than 12 years. I mean, make Germany
1200?
great again. Right there with you, baby. Do it. I mean, maybe leave the swastikas at home, but yes, I'm right there with you. I mean, I see nothing wrong with this. But the biggest thing is what's intriguing to me is Europeans are finally waking up and realizing that Western Europe did not win in 1945. They were defeated and they were conquered by the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They have been a vassal of the United States for 80 years. And they're finally starting to wake up to the fact, hey, maybe we don't want to be your vassal anymore. Maybe we don't want to have to bend the knee every time the president from Washington, D.C. gives me a call. And I say more power to you. And I wish that more states here in the United States would start doing the exact same thing and start nullifying this crap that comes out of D.C. Seriously, what are they going to do? Are they going to send a brigade to Helena, Montana under a rainbow flag if we say, no more, no more? What are they going to do?
Well, I mean, I agree to the extent that, I'm very anti-imperialist. I don't like that the US does even have vassal states. And I personally, I mean, I haven't done much international travel, since becoming a mom, but in my days as a younger journalist, and I traveled all over the place. I was in Europe frequently, multiple times a month, and the different countries that I've been to, and we're talking like 15 years ago, right? I want those countries to remain those countries. I want those countries to keep their culture. I want them to retain their language. I don't want to see a McDonald's at every corner. I don't want to see a Krispy Kreme at every corner. Starbucks is already like ubiquitous everywhere
Yeah.
around the world. I mean, you can go to the most far-flung places and you will find a Starbucks. Personally, I don't like that. I would rather go to some mom and pop shop to get a cup of coffee, whatever the local brew is, and drink from there, because I think every country should retain their own identity. And I don't think that they should be ashamed, even if you're German. Sure, okay, fine. You let Adolf Hitler win one time and it caused like massive destruction around the globe. That was a horrible thing. But your culture extends way before 1937.
Yeah,
So
very much so.
it's okay to be proud of, Bavarian roots and your Braunschweiger and your other sausages. It's okay. It's okay to be German. It's
But
okay
that's
to be
because
Lao. It's
but
okay to
that's
be
be-
son of the South. It's
but that's because
okay.
you're not a globalist. But the only way this globalist system can work is that you have to have homogeneity. So you kind of like how in
That's
Japan,
terrible.
how if you go to school, like all the kids wear a school uniform, they all look the
Mhm.
same. That's what they're trying to do here on a global level. We are all the same. The idea of the nation
I
state
want I want
is
the Germans
gone.
to go back to wearing lederhosen.
I don't know. Are those britches?
Yeah, those they're lederhosen with the straps and the shorts and the high socks, and go back to wearing your thing,
Suspenders.
man.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
back
No,
to
dude.
wearing
Yeah. No,
be you. If you're German, be you.
take back your sovereignty. Do it. Screw the EU. Get out of the EU. Make
Yeah,
Spain
I mean,
Spanish again. Make Portugal Portuguese
this is
again. Do it.
something that Ted was definitely we've talked about, and Ted has mentioned this before. I mean, the independence of culture cannot be extricated from this whole. You cannot. Each culture, they are losing the French are losing. I mean, obviously, Ted's half French. Like his mom was full on French.
Right.
The French losing their culture to American imperialism. They're becoming. I hate seeing that. I hate seeing. Like I have family in France. I hate seeing that little by little, because of the nature of being a vassal state and their foreign policy being tied to ours, that our culture is seeping into theirs.
Yep.
And part of American foreign policy, which we can get into with USAID, including the rainbow flag stuff as a humanitarian cause, we have forced that down the throats of all of these European countries. And I think what we're seeing at this Madrid conference of right-wing conservatives is a rejection of that, because most of these cultures, unlike the United States, they still are very heavily Christian or Catholic, wherever they're from, respectively, like the
Or at least
Polish
have
or
that
Catholics.
tradition, and at least have the
Right.
traditions.
So for the most part, they're not big on the rainbow flag stuff, and they shouldn't have to be in order to have good relations with the U.S. We shouldn't force our supposed friends in other countries who might have different opinions about lifestyle and culture, that we can't be your friend because you think differently than us. And I think that's wrong. And I think, to that extent, this conference in Madrid, I think it should be highlighted that each of their cultures, they should be proud of whatever it is, even if to Americans, that American, especially the American left, are going to look at it and go, they're racist pigs, they're homophobes, they're whatever. But you also then have to look at yourself and say, well, how much do I respect the sovereignty of those countries? Apparently you don't, if you're going to try to cram American culture and American ideals down those people's throats. Then in that case, I mean, you could see it exemplified by, in the American left, they won't be your friend if you think differently than them. If you're a Trump voter, they won't be your friend. They don't. I've been unfriended by a whole bunch of people. I've been disowned by a whole bunch of people I grew up with in California because I don't support Biden. I didn't support Kamala. And it's not even obviously that I love Trump. That's not the issue. It's that I didn't support their causes.
Right.
Period. I don't think like them. So I've been unfriended by people I've known literally my whole life. And you could see that mirrored in U.S. foreign policy and how we try to force the Europeans to be like us, to eat like us, to think like us, to say your culture should look like ours. And I don't think that's a good thing at all.
Nope. I agree.
All.
Let's go to headline 5.
All
I
right.
like this one.
Last headline.
This is my favorite
then
one.
We'll jump into USAID. I went to the store this weekend, and let me say, we went yesterday, and we went to Aldi, and it's a German chain that has taken America by storm. And it's a discount grocery store, German grocery store. I don't know if you guys have Aldi in Montana, but Aldi is known for, I mean, the eggs are usually right around $1.50. Sunday, a dozen eggs were yesterday $4.15 a dozen at Aldi.
I'm about to break your brain.
So
I'm here in Montana, which is rural farming and ranching. A dozen eggs right now here in the Flag County is $12. It's $1
no.
Yes.
No.
Kizzy, my wife, completely lost her mind because we signed up for to make egg casseroles for breakfast at church yesterday. We're gonna make 2, so usually it takes 2 dozen eggs. We use a dozen eggs per casserole. It was $28 to get 2 dozen eggs.
Oh my
in farm
God.
country here in Northwest Montana. And so I kid you not, I promise you. And if that's that way here, it's coming your way. And the people in the big cities, God help you, because eggs are a staple.
Oh my God. Well, that's exactly what led to this story. It's kind of funny, but kind of sad. It's, it is funny, but it's a state of where we are, to Robbie's
Yeah.
point. So the heist of 100,000 eggs from the back of a trailer in Pennsylvania has become a whodunit that police have yet to crack. A week after the theft that law enforcement say could be tied to the sky-high cost of eggs, no leads have come in. Trooper First Class Megan Frazier, a spokesperson for the Pennsylvania State Police, said on Wednesday, we're relying on leads from people within the community, so we're hoping that somebody knows something, and they'll call us and give us some tips. Oh, so $100,000 worth of eggs. So that was like what? Like 10 dozen eggs?
Yeah.
Police are also following up with any possible witnesses and looking into surveillance footage that could help them identify the perpetrator as they race to solve the mystery. Quote, in my career, I've never heard of 100,000 eggs being stolen. This is definitely unique, said Frazier, who has a dozen years on the job. Bird flu is forcing farmers to slaughter millions of chickens a month, pushing U.S. egg prices to more than double their cost in summer of 2023. And it appears there may be no relief in sight with Easter approaching. The average price per dozen of eggs nationwide, hit a $4.15 high in December. That is not quite as high as the $4.82 record set 2 years ago. But the Department of Agriculture predicts egg prices are going to soar another 20% this year.
Yeah.
That's knucking futs. $4.15 is exactly what I just told you our Aldi was charging per dozen, and typically that's, they're hovering right around $1.50. This is crazy. The cost of eggs speaks volumes about the cost of living exploding in the United States, and basic fundamental goods like eggs and bread and water, milk, all the basics are really going up. Like even a gallon of water here in the city, you're looking at almost $2 a gallon for one big gallon jug, right? Traditionally, it used to be about 79 cents. And here's the problem, Robbie, is for water, you would think Americans should be able to turn on the tap and drink it like a human right.
Yeah. Since you're paying for it with your utilities, right?
Right.
I mean,
But, lead everywhere, old pipes all across America, lead and other chemicals, fluoride, stuff like that. And filters cost money,
Yeah.
that a lot of people don't have access to. So the best thing they can do is go buy a gallon jug of water. And eggs, I mean, good Lord. Look, how come they have, Robbie, why did they push a COVID vaccine, untried, untested, on the masses of Americans? More than 3/4 of Americans were basically forcibly vaccinated.
but hey, the
Why
vaccine
haven't
was
they
safe and effective. So for our
It's
YouTube
it is
community guidelines, it's safe,
that is
effective,
true.
it works. So it's the best vaccine,
It is.
best vaccine ever. So YouTube, don't cancel us, not yet anyway.
That's right. Why did they not make the best, most useful vaccine for like bird flu? Why haven't they come up with, if not a vaccine, like put it in the bird feed or put it, the animal feed? If this is now bird flu is catching into our cows, our livestock,
Sure.
bird flu, you're culling millions of birds a month.
Mhm.
Why has the USDA not pushed on the FDA to push on pharma to invent some sort of, if not a vaccine, but some sort of medicine to help these birds not contract or pass on bird flu that keeps morphing and now catching into our cows and now our livestock? Just our
Yeah.
food supply here in the United States is garbage. No wonder George Galloway during the whole Brexit thing told me, Manila, I love you and I love visiting the United States, but he said, but you can keep your chlorinated chicken. We don't want American chicken here in the
Yeah.
UK with the chemicals you feed, the byproducts you feed into your birds. We don't want that. And it
Yeah.
always stuck with me, because why is the US suffering bird flu? What is different between European birds and the American birds? How come you don't hear about mass livestock or bird flu problems happening with their animals
So
in
this
Europe.
is a
They got farms.
so this is a question actually I can actually answer because of where I live. So the reason why this doesn't happen in Europe is the same reason it doesn't happen here in Montana. It's because we have farms. Most of these big egg plants in the United States, they're factories, and they put hundreds of thousands of chickens in these little cages, and they just force them to lay eggs constantly. That's what they do. And so it's not free range. So like here, I can go down the road and there's 100 chickens out in a field, and they just range. And then every morning you just go out and you collect the
Is
eggs.
that what makes them sick? Is that they're clustered together
Yeah,
in these
of
big
course.
giant hen houses?
Yeah, because it's well, it's a flu, right? So it's airborne. So what happens is that one, you can't a vaccine in this case, unlike the COVID vaccine, which is safe and effective, really wouldn't work with the chicken because uh, for whatever reason, viruses with chickens mutate every year, even though they don't seem to with humans.
Well, so
Bullshit.
does the
But
flu. So does the flu, but they
Manila,
still tell
Manila, you're
Americans
doubting
to
the
get.
science. You're doubting the science. You're a conspiracy theorist. You go get
That's
your
true.
tin hat from behind you, put on your head right now. I'm about to
That is
educate you.
true.
So the reason why that this is happening is because the virus mutates. It just goes through all these factories, and it contaminates all the chickens. Now here we have a problem that's called zombie disease. That's a real thing. It's called wasting disease, and deer get it, and they're worried it's going to it could jump over to humans. And so, if a deer gets wasting disease, they actually start. It's kind of like leprosy. They start to rot while they're alive.
Oh my God.
And so now there's a really big concern that wasting disease might jump over into the human population, which is a very real concern because there's no cure for it. It's kind of like flesh-eating bacteria, or it's like it's and you can't stop it. And so, as far as the eggs go, to answer your question, if Americans would actually start having these things called farms again instead of these big factories that produce all their food and
Like this.
cram chemicals, yeah, that's exactly it. So it's if you actually if you had real farms in this country, this would not happen. But you can't have
Ugh.
real farms because inflation makes it where you can't afford the land if you're a farmer.
Right.
That's the problem.
Well,
And
I mean,
so
but I have to imagine the Europeans have big factory farms like this too.
I don't know as much about them, but from the
I don't
Europeans I've
either, but
talked to, is that there's still a large number of family farms, like especially in Poland, Eastern Germany, in Eastern Europe. It's still the idea of the gentleman farmer is still very much alive and well. So there's still
mm,
actual farms where people can go and buy eggs from a farmer instead of buying it from some corporation that just
right.
force feeds chickens and just makes them crap eggs all the time.
Oh, yeah, it's nasty. I know.
Yeah.
I remember seeing these videos in college, but I just feel like we always hear about American animals, livestock being infected with one thing or another. It's like our food supply is a shitload of sick animals.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what we're feeding ourselves is sick, unwell animals. No wonder we have a sick and unwell population, right? So eggs is just like the thing that is tangible to the average consumer at home that might be listening or watching this, because that's something they're aware of, right? You go to the grocery store every week and go pick up some eggs and you're like, "Oh shit, the price of eggs really went up." I mean, it really went up. I like I said, hadn't shopped for eggs in a week and a half, and I go to the store yesterday and I went, "What the hell? 4.15? It
Our
was
local
like
bake our
2.60 last week."
our local bakery had to shut down early last week because we're out of eggs, and so they couldn't make bread and stuff. I mean, egg is a staple.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
think
you
about
need
how
it
many
for.
think about how many recipes call for eggs. Well,
I know.
I mean, this is going to be a major problem, and it's not going to stop here. It's
And they
going to
said it's gonna
continue
go up
going.
for the rest of the year. This is where I would like Trump to issue a statement on this and figure something out. I don't know what that is, but there are excellent farmers that are. I mean, they haven't approved RFK Jr. yet, and but the USDA people, I think, have been approved. So I would like to hear farmers weigh in on this and how to fix the problem, because it is hitting everybody in their pockets, and it hurts. So
Let me tell you why, and then we'll go over to the main story. They're going to talk to farmers because BlackRock donates more.
well, I'm only
that's a
hoping
fact.
there are new farming officials in town. I'm not saying this is like a new sheriff in town and everything's going to change, but I think there's a light of hope, because I do know some people that will be acting as advisors, who are farmers that I trust, that are kind of crazy and nutty.
Yeah.
And I think that's what needs to happen, that in order to affect change in Washington, you need to talk to those crazy farmers that aren't bought out by big pharma, that aren't bought out by GMO crops and feeding their animals. That, I think that can happen, and I think it'll happen in a hurry if RFK Jr. gets approved and he gets in there with Health and Human Services, and they can work in tandem with the USDA boss. I forget the name of the lady that's the head of USDA now, but she was easily put in place. No one had any scuffles about her, but I think they'll work together and be able to at least resolve some of this disgusting stuff. I mean, look what's on screen. That's who wants to eat that?
There's there's nothing humane about it. No. Y'all all know I'm not a flaming liberal. All right, that's not me. That being said, it is important that we conserve the resources that we have. We're supposed to be stewards of this planet. That's not being a steward. That's being a butcher.
Yeah, that's just exploitation by way of Monsanto.
Yeah,
if you
100%.
ask me.
Right there with you. Let's move on.
Let's hit the jaws and get to our main headline, and we're going to try to keep this at about probably 20 minutes left or so, because of course we're overtime.
That's because I can't read.
That's not it. It's just because we got a lot to say. Here we go. All right, we are on to the main topic, which is, of course, USAID, and the big ass axe that I have to grind about this, Robby. I know. Let me preface before I dive into the bullshit surrounding the whole media stuff around the world. Let me preface by saying and acknowledging that, yes, USAID, it was born in 1961. Yes, it has done a lot of good around the world. I agree. I don't argue that point. I'm not dismissive of it. It absolutely has a big portion of its budget year in and year out that does good things. But that said, the United States is not a fucking benevolent charity.
No.
This country does not, just out of benevolence, give freely without expecting something in return, right? And USAID is an arm of that. It is an arm of soft power by way of saying, hey, Africa, we're going to help you with the AIDS problem. That was what George W. Bush did, right? He made AIDS like the thing that he was going to tackle. And yes, absolutely. Did it bring down, the transmission, help people live longer with the vaccines and all? Absolutely. It did great things. But in doing so, the whole purpose of doing that is to affect American influence across Africa. And why does the U.S. want countries to be friendly and grateful to the United States? Because Africa has all the freaking minerals and all the good stuff that the United States needs for new modern technology. We don't do it because we're just being benevolent and we want to save lives. We being the United States, our tax dollars are spent, whether Americans know it or not, on, yes, there are good things to it, but it's not no strings attached. There's always strings attached. And that's the point I want to preface with, because that is a fact. That is a plain old fact. Ain't nothing nice that the US does for free. Big Daddy's going to want a piece of your pie, whatever
Mhm.
that is. Uncle Sam is going to want it. So while there are good things that are done and things have resulted from it, right? Like babies living, despite their mommies having AIDS. Great, amazing, wonderful. God bless. But at the same time, that's on the human level.
Yeah.
On the backside, on the government level, guess what? When the US goes into the Ivory Coast and vaccinates all of these people by way of USAID to prevent, babies contracting their mother's AIDS, guess what? On the government level, the US wants access to your land, wants access to your minerals, wants access to your farms, your cocoa farms, or whatever it may be. The US wants it for way of US corporations, right? Like Hershey's or Mondelez, right? Like they want your cocoa crops. They'll vaccinate you and
Yeah.
save your people, sure, but it ain't for nothing.
No, it's a gateway drug. I mean, what it is that they give you this foreign aid, they give you this assistance, say, look, we can make your life easier. We can
We'll
help
help
you.
you.
All you have to do in exchange is get on your knees. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, nations always operate off of their interests. They always have, they always will. It is the human condition. If you want to get something for free, if you want to get help for free, then you go to a charity. That's why charities exist. You
Right.
don't go to another nation and then expect that nation to take the resources that it took from its people to begin with to give to you to help your people for nothing. That is the most naive thing that you could possibly ever believe.
But you got Americans right now, Robby. Right now, if I drive to downtown, if I drive 8 miles that way, I'm going to see idiots outside protesting outside of the downtown by RT's old office,
Yeah,
outside of the Ronald Reagan building, protesting that USAID effectively got shut down. And, there's a judge putting a stay on all of these unelected bureaucrats that work for USAID. There's some 10,000 people on the payroll, right? All
yeah.
around the world. Some of them are diplomats, some of them are, aid workers, some of them, whatever. They can be a driver, delivery truck driver, whatever. 10,000 people supposedly now that it's folded under the State Department, that supposedly Marco Rubio is going to whittle this down to about 300 people, and for it to continue its work only as truly an aid agency, which I'm not opposed to that,
I am.
because I mean, to
I,
aid.
100%. No, but no, that's not the government's job. That is not the government's job. I have no problem at all with aid and charity. None at all. I think that's a righteous thing, and that's something we should all contribute to. But government is force. Government is not a teddy bear. Government is not there to offer you a hand. That's not what government does. If you want help, then what you do is that you go to Samaritan's Purse. You go through a charity, and that's how you get the help that you need. There is nothing for free in politics. You know this better than I
Well,
do.
I
You,
agree to
it
some
never
degree.
happens. It doesn't happen. That is all that is. All that is, Manila, is that you're going in and you're placing that hook. Say, look, I'm helping you. We're doing all these nice things. Now, what we need you to do is maybe go along with the next round of sanctions. Hey, maybe you should buy some of that rotted Ukrainian wheat that we have shipping out, and and use that instead. No, help a brother out. There is nothing benevolent about this. Nothing at all. If you want a
I mean,
charity,
I
you
get
go
it.
to a charity. You don't go to the state.
I get it. And I, if I were operating under the MAGA position, if I'm looking at this from being a government official, a Trump government official, if I am operating, working as, Marco Rubio's comms person, right? Let's say that's my position. Then I would advise Secretary Rubio to absolutely keep some of these people on board and maintain that X amount of dollars goes out in what can appear to be pure aid in terms of medicines, in terms of medical access, things like that, funding those things. Because guess what? That really does help the U.S. image abroad. I mean, that
Then
the
I
soft
I I
power.
I agree, but again, though, what you do is that you give that money to Doctors Without Borders, you give it to Samaritan's Purse, you give it to the actual aid agencies that, one, actually do the work,
So you're
and
saying not direct by way of USAID.
none at all. No, get rid of it.
Like, we
It's
shouldn't
not
have people like this lady standing there in front of a cargo plane with whatever supplies. Like,
hell
that
no,
should
she
not
should
be.
be hell no, she should be at Walmart bagging groceries or selling aluminum siding or doing insurance. No, that is not her job. Manila, for the life of me, this is what I do not understand. About people who've been plugged into DC and big cities for as long as y'all have. We have got an epidemic of homelessness in this country.
Yes.
It's going up exponentially every year.
Yeah.
We had a homeless person freeze to death here in my
God.
town last night. Tonight, the lowest get down to about 15 below zero. We have got people in this country who are literally dying because they can't get housing, because they can't get medication. Our food sucks, and all our government wants to do is give money away to some pygmy in New Guinea. Screw that! No, you take care of your own people first. And I have no problem helping them, none at all. But you go through the charities actually know how to do the freaking work. That's how you do it.
Okay. I'm not
That's my
opposed to that,
position.
but I'm saying, speaking as if I were the comms director for Secretary Rubio, I
Then
would
fire the
encourage
comms
him.
director too. Fire that schmuck too. Get rid of him.
I would encourage the secretary to obviously keep some of the funds flowing, which they supposedly are, for the next 90 days while DOGE reviews all of these contracts. Now, that said, here's the part that I'm completely all for: ripping apart USAID's budget for this particular issue is on the freaking media issue. This part is what really, and maybe I'm stealing this from the cowboys in Montana, but this really chaps my hide. Really, really. I mean, the whole media sponsorship thing around the world that they're trying to downplay. Look, who
Uh,
was it? Cy Hirsch? Was it Cy Hirsch that said Americans are the most, or was it Noam Chomsky that said Americans are the most propagandized population on the planet? They just don't know it.
Let me see. So Sheila on YouTube is asking a question. Did the homeless person accept help? Read The Glass Castle. I've never read The Glass Castle. As far as the homeless person asked for help, we have a warming center here in our town
Oh,
and
God.
where I live. So we can accommodate 50 people. The problem is that even in wintertime, there's a sizable transient population. And so people get dropped off by buses. We don't know from where.
The
And
migrants,
so
right?
I don't know what ethnicity this dude was, but in the summertime, oh yeah. I mean, there's
Oh,
a lot of people they look a lot more like you and a lot less like me
hmm.
that come here through here in the summertime. Maybe that'll change now that Trump's in the White House. But I don't know if the person asked for help or what the circumstances was. But what I can say though is that it is inexcusable to have Americans dying while our government is spending hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign aid and fighting wars, and now wanting to go out and just start ethically cleansing Gazans. My solution for U.S. aid fixes your media problem and it fixes my problem. Get rid of it. Take care of the home folks first.
Well, I mean, this agency is hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, billions, even billions. I think their operating budget is somewhere around 50 billion with a B, annually on average, give or take, right? But I mean, that's a lot of freaking money. And where does it all go to, right? I mean, Sure. Is it a drop in the bucket for the overall US GDP? Is it? Yes, but every dollar counts
Sure.
when you have a population of, just in Los Angeles, in California alone, we're talking about a population of like 30,000 homeless people in California. I mean, that's a topic I know about. I don't know about how many homeless around the country, but I know in California what that number looks like, right? And in LA alone, that the overwhelming share is in LA County alone, right? Of all the
Yeah.
homeless people. And then a big chunk, sizable chunk in San Francisco. But I mean, that is a whole city's worth of homeless people that are
Yeah.
not getting the dollars of aid for them. And many of them, many, the great many of them are Americans.
Yeah.
And many of them even are veterans, and they're not getting that aid. The USAID doles out, that is money to go outside of our borders. That
Yeah.
is all dollars going proliferating elsewhere. Now, my panties are all in a bunch because I'm learning that almost $250 million is spent on the freaking media. Is
Yeah.
spent on outside media, right?
But they
And
got to tell people about those evil Russians. I mean,
I know.
Manila, did you know that the Russians will come to your house and they will steal your dog? They will
I
steal
know.
your dog and they will
And
kick
feed
your
it to the
baby on the way
Haitians,
out.
right? No?
Yeah.
The
I mean, that's what's it's at least the media thing I can get from a propaganda standpoint
Sure, of
because
course,
you want to foment that war fever,
of course.
but
But here's the
it's wrong.
here's the damn double standard that pisses me the fuck off. Like, so everybody knows I worked for RT for the last decade, RT
Yeah.
America, while it was still, functional up until Biden got us canceled in 2022. But RT, not only do I stand behind RT America's reporting, especially my own reporting. I mean, I didn't vet every reporter's story. I couldn't have done that, but I certainly stand by my own reporting. And broadly, I stand behind the network's reporting on accuracy, on the importance of the subjects we talked about. But here's the thing. Not only did we never lie to the viewers, we also never lied about where the funding came from. It says
Sure.
it in the name. The R is for Russia.
Yeah.
So we never pretended. We had no commercials. We had no commercials because the Russian government was funding us. This, in the same way the US funds PBS, right?
Sure.
Or
Or
in
the
the same
BBC.
way the BBC is funded by the UK government. At least there's transparency in where the money came from for all of those different outlets, and us included. When you get to the shady bullshit behind how Politico is saying that they're not government funded, bullshit. When
Of
you're
course they are.
$8 million received from USAID, then you try to say, oh no, but that's from, them buying our pro plan and blah, blah. God, Jesus, how expensive is your pro plan? Like, what is Politico pro? And why would the government, yeah, somehow that's not quid pro quo when the government is spending $8 million on buying subscriptions? Give me a break. But then here's the worst part. I'm looking at Washington Post here for those that are listening to us and not watching. So I'm going to read a couple of things like this coming from Kiev about how independent media around the world, and how independent are you if the United States government is footing your bill, right? And
Yeah.
then and how dare US media criticize the Russians, and my previous employer criticized the Russian government for calling USAID a foreign influence campaign. And you know what? You know who did too, Robby? 3 years ago? You know who banned their media funding?
Who's that?
Israel.
Shocking.
Israel banned any media funding from USAID. I remember reporting this on In Question that Israel wanted, like, in order for you to operate as independent media, you needed to show dollar for dollar where you were getting your funding, where you're getting your money. And if it was coming from USAID, it was not allowed, if memory serves. Because this is like 3, maybe 4 years ago on In Question, but I definitely remember reporting that story. And I'm only recollecting it right now in real time as we talk. But Israel is supposed to be our good besties in the Middle East. Bibi Netanyahu banned that kind of funding. Go ahead and look it up. I don't know if it's still standing, but it was 4 years ago or 3 years ago. But here from the Washington Post, I'm just going to read a couple highlights. From Kiev, the suspension of USAID has had a dramatic effect on both Ukrainian and Russian independent news outlets that relied on the grants to operate and produced work, often critical of their governments.
By definition, they're not independent.
Right. Ukraine's independent media, a collection of small regional outlets, muckraking investigative websites, and internet news platforms have been reeling since the USAID announcement, with some organizations saying they are just weeks away from slashing staff or closing down entirely. I'm going to skip over. Moreover, the country's main broadcasters have been consolidated into a single television channel that promotes stories largely favorable to the government. Well, no shit. Your president, Zelensky, your unelected president, is the one who shuttered all the media.
Yeah.
Putin didn't do that. USAID didn't do that. Zelensky did that. But here they are trying to convolute the story and deliberately mix and match the pieces. I don't know if you guys follow that, but if you read this article from Washington Post, it deliberately tries to conflate multiple storylines and narratives to somehow say Russia bad, USAID good, USAID funding media, and they fail to point the finger in this highlight right here, consolidated to a single television channel favorable to the government. They don't say that Zelensky did that. They do not name him.
So I have a couple questions for you, Manila. Then I want to try and make a point here. Why is TikTok bad?
Wait. Couple more highlights.
Okay.
For Ukraine, the freeze comes at a moment when the need for independent sources of information is critical. Russian forces continue to advance along the front line, while Kiev is scrambling to find the personnel to continue an increasingly unpopular war. Detector, I guess it's a media outlet that's USAID funded in Ukraine. Detector media head Natalia Ligachova told the Washington Post that she thought, quote, more than 50% of the media organizations that receive foreign grants were dependent on American assistance. 50% of Ukraine's media is funded by U.S. tax dollars. Let that sink in.
Yeah. No, it's all crap. And that kind of goes back to what I was just, I'm going to answer my own question rudely. TikTok is bad because it allows China to influence American popular opinion and elections. The same thing with Red Note. So that's bad. If you go in, if you have your own volition, go in and you download an app that you decide that you want to use. That's horrible. Oh my God, you're listening to those Chinese people. They're stealing your data. Hello, Google. How are you doing today?
Yes.
It's all doublespeak. It's all hypocrisy. It's complete garbage. And what I don't understand, I am a man of the right. I am a creature of the right. Where in the hell are the leftists who are out there to reach across the aisle to me and say, hey, Robby, I'm right there with you. Let's fight these bastards. Instead, I'm getting called a Nazi. When I'm the one actually fighting for your freedom of speech. I don't understand it. If you're looking for independent media, this is it. Y'all, I'm going to tell y'all something. Manila has not got a paycheck since October.
It's been months.
This show that y'all are watching right now, this is independent media. This is independent. Do you want to know who decides if this show succeeds or dies? It's you, the viewer. You have every bit of power and agency in if this show continues. If the TMI dies, it's because the people who are watching have decided we cannot support you with our dollars. because the value simply is not there. And I understand. Hey, listen, eggs are $12 a freaking dozen right now where I am. I get it. But if you see value in what you're doing, this is independent media. We don't
This
get
is
grants
real
from
independent
anybody.
media. Yeah,
We
this
depend
is
on
real independent.
we depend on you.
We're not getting grants from the U.S. government. We're not getting grants from the Russian government. We're not we're not getting money from anybody except, the pennies that are collected, let's say from Rumble commercials, Rumble
Yep.
ads,
We
or
have a
our donors, our handful of wonderful viewers who thankfully God bless them, are in the financial position to help. And I know it's hard for a lot of people. So I
yeah,
don't
it
want to turn
sucks.
this I don't want to turn this into a woe is me, or turn this into a
Well, it's
pity
not what was
party.
me. No, it's not what was me thing. It's just if you want independent media,
This is what
then you have to
independent
support
media
it
this is
because
what independent media looks like, for sure,
we
because
we
none of
are
this
not
money
bought
has come our way.
we are not bought and paid for by anybody. Like this show is a net loss for me and Manila and Ted.
For sure.
That is a fact, and I am not over here poo pooing and saying, oh, woe is me. Hey, I'm not grifting. That's not my spiel. I work for what I have. So does Manila.
Well, it's a
What
good
US
thing that I'm good with my money.
what USAID is, what this story that is that she's going through for the Wall Street Journal. This is not independent media. Independent media is whenever you have a right winger who will sit down and talk to a damned communist. And I find out
Commie
I got
Ted.
that, well, not him, but also Caleb. I have got
And
more in
yes,
common with them than I do so-called conservatives. What the fuck are you conserving? And yeah,
it's the
I
talking
just
heads
dropped an
on
F bomb.
mainstream media. That's
I
right.
think
It's the
I think it's the
talking
second
heads
time
on
I've ever
mainstream
dropped an
media,
F
right?
bomb on the show.
It's
It
okay,
is
producer Robby.
it is it's just it's crap. It is complete crap. Okay, rant's over. Keep going, Manila. Keep going.
Look, Time Magazine. I'm reading from mainstream publications where they sprinkle in a little bit of facts, right? But then they go on with their tropes and their narratives about why it's good. For example, the AP, I highlighted in pink, the AP spokeslady, she would not, according to Time Magazine, the outlet would not reveal how much of it is earning in federal government contracts. What does that say to you about the AP? What does that say to you about Reuters? What does that say to you about Reporters Without Borders?
I was
Because
just
you know
about to
what?
ask you about that because aren't they completely on the government tit too?
Of course.
But
But
they're
we don't know
independent.
an exact dollar amount at this point, because Caroline Leavitt, the White House spokeslady, has not released all those documents yet, because I've been hunting for them. We don't know to what dollar amount, because a leak is never a leak, right? So what we know about Politico was on purpose. What we know about the New York Times is on purpose for obvious reasons. So
Sure.
these other outside agencies like Reporters Without Borders, it's supposed to be like a nonprofit group. We don't know yet, but we don't know the exact dollar amount. But certainly we have seen, and I have seen since 2017, when this whole Russian propaganda stuff emerged, that Reporters Without Borders stopped representing me. They stopped talking to my interest, or to try to save my ass, right? They stopped. They didn't seem to care when RT's reporter literally got kidnapped and beat up in Donbass.
Well, that's because Russia's not a country, Manila. It's a gas station with nuclear weapons. Didn't you get the
That's right.
memo?
That's right. Reporters Without Borders didn't say anything when that happened. They didn't come to his defense. They didn't. So, okay, now we know why. We know
Yeah.
all of these media outlets are sucking from USAID's tits to the tune of more than $250 million. Like right here, Time Magazine says Musk's focus on the USAID agency has threatened some $268 million in congressionally authorized funding aimed at offering training and support to some 6,200 independent journalists working around the world, including in war-torn Ukraine, said the organization Reporters Without Borders. Really?
Manila, I'm more of an independent journalist, and I'm as dumb as they come than those people that they're talking about in that story. I can't read a damn article without, but hey, but you know what? It's
Thousands.
independent.
This is the thing. Thousands of so-called reporters around the world being funded by the United States to the tune of well over $250 million. They are meant to be there to agitate against the governments of certain countries
Sure.
that are not friendly to the US or not, don't have good relations, including Cuba, including the United States, including in Hungary, and which I've reported on in 2023 when USAID went to Hungary with Samantha Power. I talked to Jim Jatras about this, about USAID going in there behind Viktor Orban's back and try to enforce, hey, civil society groups, we're going to give you money. Hey, new media startups, we're going to give you money. But the catch is, y'all have to have a pride parade. And I sound like I'm being sarcastic, but I am, but I'm being serious. That
Well,
was the
sure.
catch. That was the catch in Hungary, for tens of millions of US dollars to go into Hungary to these independent media groups. The catch was they needed to organize and push against Viktor Orban's government to organize a pride parade in a very staunchly Orthodox Christian country. Very, very, very Orthodox.
Well, look what
And
happened. Well, look at the elections that just happened in Georgia. What was it, last month? Not the
yeah,
state, the country.
they flipped
That
it.
was not organic in any way, shape, or form. And again, my question again, as a creature of the right, I'm looking for anyone on the left who's to the left of me. Say, where are you? Listen, I disagree with you on abortion. Abortion's murder. Take it what you will. I'm a right winger. If I want to have a fully automatic rifle, by gosh, be able to go to Walmart and buy one for the price of these damn overpriced eggs. I'm a right winger. But you know what we can't agree on? Let's not fight all these stupid wars. Maybe freedom of speech is a good thing. Let's take care of the home folks. Why
Look,
is this controversial?
this is where I'm with DOGE in going in and being a huge wrecking ball. And like, for example, here, this is from Reuters, who also sucks on the USAID teat. It says so right in their headline. U.S. funded Cuban media in limbo after Trump orders USAID closed. How ironic is this bullshit? This was just published this morning before we got on air. I highlighted a couple parts. The U.S. State Department has issued worldwide stop work directives now under court review that have effectively frozen most foreign aid, including funding for media outlets that cover Cuba but operate independent of the Cuban government. Miami-based CubaNet, which
That's cute.
received a dedicated $500,000 from USAID in 2024 to engage, quote, on-island young Cubans through objective and uncensored multimedia journalism, last week published an editorial on its site seeking donations from readers. So they're going to have to do what we do, Robby, and ask for donations instead of just doing the U.S. bidding, because now they've got, their whole operations in order and it exists. So they need to keep it going now that USAID is not going to fund them. So, like, for example, it says here, the decision to slash the funding appears to conflict with a broader U.S. government policy towards Cuba that has, quote, that has long funded opposition and human rights advocacy groups, as well as independent media. So it tells you right there, which I've highlighted right here from Reuters, right there, it says it, that USAID has long funded opposition and human rights advocacy groups, depending on how you define human rights,
Mhm.
which is similar to the way Bill Clinton defined sex. And independent media, also left for your discretion of how to define it. USAID has proven by wordsmithing their way out of it. They're just wordsmithing everything to say that they're an aid organization. Yes, they do, like I said at the top, they do good things that appear purely benevolent, but they're not purely benevolent. But yes,
No.
the outcome is a good thing. Sure, the net good is there. Fine. But my bone to pick is with this bullshit funding of foreign media, and then to call them independent media, but to call me a Russian propagandist, hell freaking yes, I take that personally. Hell yes, I am pissed off at the American mainstream media for shitting on me for having been a truth teller, an honest reporter, and digging up facts, but calling me a propagandist when
one
they
thing,
are taking money from a government as well. My paycheck might have come by way of the Kremlin, but I never hid that. I've never hidden my source of my income. Unlike all of these people taking in hundreds of millions of dollars a year, how dare they? How dare they? And then for the US to cry and complain that this American-backed media organizations aren't allowed to operate now in Russia, aren't allowed to operate in Hungary. Boo-hoo! Is RT here within the US borders? No. Is RT operating in France? No. Is RT operating RT Deutsche within the confines of the German borders? No, because the US and all their vassal puppy states are not believers of free speech.
of course
And
not.
all of these thousands of reporters around the world, thousands of outlets around the world have all in unison got their marching orders a number of years ago, Robby, to turn on people like me and call me disinformation agent, Russian propagandist, have Twitter shadow ban me, which still hasn't been lifted, by the way, Elon Musk, put a label on me and tarnished my reputation for, I mean, who knows when that'll ever be repaired, if ever.
And here's
But
the irony.
they have the nerve. What fucking nerve?
And here's the irony of it. So the independent American media. I'm looking at you, CNN. You have a CIA director as a talking head, who's paid millions of dollars by your company, who comes out and says that we all agree, we experts of the intelligence community agree that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian misinformation, that it was a scam, and you deplatform people, including newspaper outlets, for reporting a story that you ended up having to admit was true and that you lied. So think about that for a second. I like Red Note. Yes, I am a white Southern American Christian conservative. Well, I'm not conservative. I'm a right winger. There's nothing to conserve anymore. I further trust foreign news than I do anything. I just do.
Well,
our government lies to us. Our media lies to us. It's all about war. And the only way that you're going to break through that is that you have to vote with your dollars and have to vote with your time. This show cannot grow without you. It can't. So if you can,
pitching for our show, I appreciate that, Robby.
Well, it's not even a pitch. It's freaking true. I mean, look at all these people who are getting paid tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to spread bullshit and lies. And they're being funded by the American government, the American taxpayer, which, by the way, Manila, you and I both are. They then use that money to tell media outlets to say that use your own tax dollars to tell the American people that you're a propagandist when what you're doing is telling them the truth. And the person that's saying you're a liar is freaking lying.
My own tax dollars got me
fired,
got me laid off. Look, here's more from Reuters, more highlights. USAID funding for Cuba. Look, no matter what you think of Cuba, you can hate the communists, you can hate whatever, you can hate the Castro family, whatever. Think what you will of them. That is beside the point. The point is, this is U.S. meddling all around the
Business.
world. All around the world. USAID funding, here in pink, USAID funding for Cuba-related media amounted to $2.3 million in 2024, according to an agency budget report. The majority earmarked for programs titled Independent Media and Free Flow of Information. And so here's the Cuban foreign vice minister, his name is Carlos Fernandez de Casio, called the U.S. funded media, quote, dependent on its master on a Friday post on social media. That is stinging.
Which is true. Which is true.
Dependent on its master. And this is coming from Reuters. Quote, is there anything independent about a journalist, an activist, or an opposition member who lives off the money paid by the U.S. government through USAID and now feels suffocated when they shut off the tap? Said Mr. DeCasio. That's the truth.
Yeah,
you can
100%.
hate commies, you can whatever, but what Mr. DeCasio said there, 100% facts. Facts hurt. And I mean, obviously the U.S. has been trying to disrupt the communist government in Cuba since the 1960s. So what more? It's blatant.
It's complete. Again, it's complete crap. And again, I'm looking over here to my left, and I keep looking for people who say that they are good, righteous people, that they believe in human rights, in which we have a list: freedom of speech, freedom of expression, right there with you. Where are you? I don't see you. I mean, think about this for a second. We are told all the time that the Chinese government or that the Russian government will put you in jail or punish you if you disagree. It is a matter of time, and I full well know this, before someone doxes me to my employer and I lose my job because of this show. It will happen. Because I am not on board.
You're the only one that's employed.
Well, it's going to happen. But no, it's going to happen. I mean, listen, if you go out and if you say, if you go through and if you read any code of conduct for any company that's out there, they're going to say, these are the things that we do not support. One is racism, anti-Semitism, blah, 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 blah. All the isms, right? Okay, great, fine. I oppose the genocide in Gaza. I oppose the genocide in the West Bank. I don't think that American tax dollars should be used to kill people. I am so pro-life that I think not only should a mother not murder her baby in the womb, but American bombs and American sanctions should not murder children outside of the womb too.
That's fair.
And that is a radical. Well, no, it's anti-Semitic, Manila. Because if I say it is wrong to drop a 2,000-pound bomb on an apartment building and kill a whole bunch of people, then I'm the racist.
Yes, and you should be prepared to be fired for
100%
stating that. And that's the thing.
And then those same people that would support
all these trolls.
And then those same people, and then what they will do is they'll look and say, do you see how bad China is? Do you know what they do to their people who disagree with the government narrative? Yeah, bitch, I sure do. The same fucking thing that they do to me. So what's the difference?
Well, last thing I'll say, we should probably wrap, is, look, you can shit on how China runs its, media model. You can shit on their, freedom of speech or lack thereof. You can do the same thing to Russia. You can say Russia doesn't have in their constitution freedom of speech. Fine. You can criticize that. You can like it. You can hate it. Doesn't matter. The whole point is those countries are sovereign countries with their own beliefs and guiding moralities.
And they don't guarantee freedom of speech.
Right. And that's fine. That's their own country. That is, let them, with their own sovereignty, decide how to rule, with their own people within their own borders. The Russians are, by way of employing someone like me, have not tried to pitch that idea here in the US. Me working for RT America for all those years, never once was I on air saying, I love that there is no First Amendment in Russia and we should be rid of America. Like that's such a stupid kind of indictment on RT America, was that we're spreading Russian propaganda. There was no Russian propaganda. It was that the Russians had obviously they have their own motivations for wanting independent reporters like me to dig up the ugliest stories about the US government and our horrible foreign interventions everywhere, and to criticize the US government. But that's part of my own agenda too. And so if it happens to serve everybody else in the world, in the global south, if it happens to serve that the Russians go, yeah, that reporter's not afraid to criticize the US deep state, so
But you
let's
know what?
keep
They
her
wouldn't have to.
employed.
But you know what? They wouldn't have to do that if the American media did its damn job.
Correct. And I would have stayed working for mainstream media. I would have stayed working for CBS if I felt that I was earning a living doing the honest day's work of what a journalist is supposed to do, is to keep those in power, keep their feet to the fire, and keep them honest. I refused to do that, which is why I left a very promising career working at CBS. I could probably be making millions of dollars at this point, 10, 12, 14 years later. I could probably be making a huge contract at this point if I was willing to sell out, but I refused to do that. I
All
had
you
to
have to do is
go
sell your
work.
soul. All you have to do is
I
sell your
had to
soul.
go. That's right. I had to go work under a Russian company in order to do the job of what a journalist was supposed to do, was to report on the nitty-gritty and the ugly stuff for me that my government was doing by way of a nasty, dirty foreign policy and overturning governments, causing color revolutions. Mainstream media, working for mainstream media was not going to allow me to do that. And that's how I wound up working at RT, how I went there in 2014. That's how it happened, because US mainstream media stopped doing that. And the reason they stopped doing that, now we see it's laid bare, mostly. Not, we'd like to see the exact dollar amount. So come on, Caroline Levitt, put that out. Lay it all to bear. Come on, Marco Rubio, lay it all to bear for everybody to see. Let us see dollar for dollar what CBS is getting, what Fox is getting, how much. And by the way, they launder this money. It's not like USAID cuts a direct check to Politico, or USAID cuts a direct check to Reporters Without Borders, or it's not a direct payment system. It's funneled, it's laundered through multiple different agencies and outlets.
I would
And a
love
small
to
portion.
see. I
Lay it
would
to
love
bear.
to see. I would love to see how much funding Fox News gets from Israel, because it's all Israel all the time.
APAC money.
But I don't think it's APAC. They got to be going through some other ad agency or something. But that's the kind of stuff that we need to have, because ultimately these people are getting rich somehow. And if TV viewership is going down, which we know that it is, because people are watching internet shows like the one you're watching right now.
To be fair, Fox is the only one that's highly profitable. Not like MSNBC or CNN. Fox is profitable because they show their earnings.
Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is that people watch more of their content online than what they do on cable television.
Sure.
And so you have to wonder. Yeah. So you got to wonder, who is it that's propping them up? Because they're not doing it, Manila, like USA, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart.
No.
They're doing it to try to shape a narrative. I got into a big old pissing match at church the other day. There's a guy that goes there, love him to death, great guy, arch-Zionist. It's what I do. And he was talking about how great of an idea it is just to expel all these people. And I said, how very Christian of you that you are because there's Christians that live there. And so this is a conversation that people need to have. I want you to look in
Of
the face of
Gazans?
yeah, of, yeah, of Gazans in the West Bank. You look in the eyes of some Christian that lives in Gaza or lives in the West Bank, and you tell them why they should be expelled, why their church needs to be demolished for a bunch of condos, for a bunch of people who hate your religion.
You gotta
It
worship
makes
Jared
no
Kushner.
sense. It makes no sense.
Big
And so I
fans
would
of
want to
Jared
pick.
Kushner at your church. So
They're Zionists. I mean, the whole damn lot of them. And I mean, listen, Manila, I'm an equal opportunity offender. If I have not offended you, wait a little bit. I will get around to you eventually. It will happen. But the thing is I'm open. I'm open to listening. I'm open to learning. I'm open to having a conversation. And let's just work together on things that actually freaking matter.
I agree. I mean, I don't know what else more we can say about USAID other than it funneling money and then laundering it, taking direct tax dollar money, laundering it through multiple agencies and multiple, you know, subcontractors in order to wash away its fingerprints, to help destabilize countries around the world, having, you know, CIA operatives working in there. I mean, this is not that part is not new.
No.
I think the shocking part for people to find out this past week was how much money was spent on media, to be exact, right? The
Yep.
CIA thing, we all knew. The soft power thing by way of, you know, dropping bags of grain, you know, doling out free Pfizer vaccines everywhere or whatever. You know, the godsend that is Pfizer and Moderna. The that's
Well,
safe
the
and
vaccines are
effective.
safe and effective. So there is that.
Yes, that are safe and effective. That's what I was
Yes.
saying. It's a
Yeah.
godsend. Thank God that
Yeah.
Pfizer and Moderna um, doled out, you know, sold all their vaccines to the U.S. government so the U.S. government could share its supply with developing nations all around the world.
I want my 20th booster now. I'm just really want that.
That sounds delicious. Um, so, you know, that all of that is not news to people. I
No.
think the reason people are pissed off is finding out that the media that they've all loved and trusted, that they thought was independent in whatever country they were in, they thought that media was organic. They thought that, you know, little independent media outlet that they thought they were reading was so pure and real and organic from the people, salt of
Hold
the earth.
on.
Turns
Hold
out
on.
bullshit.
Are you telling me that the Moscow Times, based out of I don't know, where is it, Germany, Poland, is not independent? Are you telling me that the Moscow Times is not independent? Shocked.
That's right. Just like the BBC, even though it is funded by supposed British tax dollars, also gets money from USAID. I covered this on my Friday podcast because the BBC has a charity wing that USAID donates to. So
Wild.
everywhere you look, everybody thinks, you know, whatever. Oh, I'm so sophisticated. You know, I hate Putin. I'm listening to this local media outlet, this small independent media outlet. If you're Russian, right?
Yep.
I'm this small startup outlet. Ha ha, joke's on you. You just suffered American propaganda. Ha ha, you didn't even know. And you hate your own country because Americans told you to. Ha ha, joke's on you. You're not as independent a thinker as you think you are. Maybe reassess where you're getting your news. But
Agreed.
so this is where we're at. The state of USA, I'd say chop the thing to bits and pieces, keep a couple of the good elements, because I do think, even though it is a soft power play to have USAID, Robby, I think at the end of the day, there is a small amount of net good that I think should be kept. If
Nope.
we can save, no, I think if
Nope.
we can save some babies
Nope.
around the world from catching diseases,
Right there with you. I was saving babies, but you don't do it through USAID. You do it through charities.
fine. We'll agree to disagree. I don't know if, I don't know enough about how charities dole out their money and their pay structures and stuff like that. At least with USAID,
I wonder
there's
if we get
money
someone. I
we
wonder
could
if we get
find out.
someone. I wonder if we get someone from Samaritan's Purse or something on the show one day. That would be fun.
I had, I literally, not literally, because someone's gonna try to get me arrested.
Literally.
I quasi literally kidnapped the leader. I think his name was Ken something during the whole Ebola breakout in Africa. Remember when some of the doctors that were with Samaritan's Purse got
Yep.
Ebola? I happened to be at that press no, it wasn't a press briefing. It was a congressional hearing about it. And when the leader of the president of Samaritan's Purse at that time came out, somehow I managed to steal him away and throw him in the car and take him to the RT studio with me for an exclusive interview because one of their doctors caught Ebola. But that is intrepid reporting.
Yep.
I got into that scrum, as small as I am, got into that scrum of reporters. I literally weaseled, because I'm smaller, I weaseled in between them, and I popped up in the center in front of him, and I started talking to him, and then he was like, "Can you get me out of here?" I said, "I get you out of here if you come with me to my studio, which is down the street." And he agreed. He said, "Anything." And I just started elbowing, mosh pitting my way through the reporters, and I drug him out with me, and he went with me to the RT studio. That is intrepid reporting. And
Agreed.
that is like, and he told us some interesting stuff. That's how you do real reporting. That is how you do real reporting. They don't do that anymore. Young reporters won't do what I did. I'm old school. I was going to elbow you and punch you. I know I'm small, so I got to really fight my way through. So I did it. And I won. I got the exclusive.
Well, the secret is that you get that government money so you can be independent.
That's right. How do I get some of this government money so I can be independent?
I don't know.
All right.
We should probably end it there. We're way over.
We got to end it. We're way over. But this is, like I said, I got a huge axe to grind, and I don't hide it. I'm not hiding it. I am bitter and angry because I am proud of the work that I did. I stand by the work that I did for a decade at RT. I stand by it. I will forever stand by the work I delivered, the investigations I've done. I stand by it. I'm proud of my work, and I am not ashamed to say that I accepted Russian Kremlin funding, because I don't care where the money comes from. If they allow me to be honest and do a hard day's work as a real journalist, I don't care where that money comes from, as long as nobody impedes what I'm about to say. And I could say to everybody watching right now and watching in the future, nobody ever curtailed what I was going to report or going to say on RT. Hey, nobody approved my scripts. Nobody approved anything I published. I said what I said and was going to say and going to write, and nobody stopped me from doing it, ever.
I'm going to say this, and then I'll shut up. There's less blood on Russian rubles than there are on American dollars.
Fair. All right. We're going to call that a day right there. Hopefully Ted feels better. We have some interviews lined up this week. And some of the people want Ted specifically to be on air. Oh, yep. One more thing. VOA, Voice of America, if people are not aware, had a budget, get this, of $267.5 million for 2024. Whereas Radio Free Europe operated on $142.2 million. Are you hearing this?
But they're independent.
No, people know that Voice of America and Radio Free Europe are not. I mean, they know it's an arm of the U.S. government.
Manila, listen, you got to stop spreading that propaganda. Everyone knows that Voice of America.
Money.
But what they do, though, listen, everybody knows that Voice of America only hires the best and the brightest. It's the most dogged defenders of democracy. It's in the freaking name, Voice of America, the voice of democracy. We will make you so. We'll make you so democratic that you'll never have to have another election, because you're gonna be so happy with the little dude in the janitor suit that we installed for you.
That's right.
It's intrepid democracy.
Elon Musk has now called for demolishing Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Liberty, Voice of America. He called it to be shut down on Sunday. I forgot to bring that up earlier. That's a major thing. He called for it to be shut down entirely because it is sucking up. I mean, I'm not good at math. That was a TED thing. Maybe you're better than me, Robby. 267.5 million plus 142.2 million between the two programs, VOA and RFE. We're looking 3, 4. That's $500 million with a B. $500 million going towards those. Do you know RT America's operating budget, which had to be filed because we were forced to do the FARA registration thing?
Sure.
In 2017, 2018, thereabouts. You can see that our operating budget, with as beautiful of a set as we had, we operated on $50 million. $50 million. And we had a staff of well over 100 people. We're like something like 120 people. All Americans except for maybe 5 Russians.
It's
$50 million budget. Okay? $50 million. Why on God's green earth is VOA operating on 267.5 million? Radio Free Europe, 142.2 million. These are 3 and 5 or 6 times RT America's operating budget annually.
But Manila, they're going to make all that back up with the wars that they start.
I'm Russian propaganda. That's not American propaganda at all.
Hey, at least you're not a white supremacist.
That's true.
So,
I'm Russian propaganda and you're a white supremacist. So there you are. That's the TMI show. All right, Ted, if you're watching, feel better. Robby, thank you so much for filling in because it's always fun to have your voice, even though it's crazy sometimes. I enjoy it.
Well, it's because you're wrong and I'm right.
Okay. You are right. That's for sure. All right, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you so much. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button. That goes a long way to help the show. We'll see you tomorrow.
Really does. It's huge.
At 10 a.m. Adios, amigos.
Bye-bye.
Bye.